Okay, we are about to begin our fifth Torah Sheba'al Peh unit of the year. This is our second one in Masechet Bava, and the first one that comes directly from the Gemara and not including any of the Mishnah. This video will serve as an introduction to our unit. Okay, let's start off by simply marking off the unit. As you can see, we are on Daf Chavav Amud Bet. Again, we are in the second parak, Parak Sheni of Masechet Bava, and the parak name is Ketzad HaRegel. We are going to begin the unit right over here where it says Amar, We're going to begin the unit up here where it says Amar Rabba, and we are going to end the unit down here after where it says the word Lishachta. We'll see later, there are different ways you can break up this unit. We probably could have done a longer one, but that's where we're going to begin. We're going to begin right here, we're going to end right over here. Okay, and again, this is our unit 5. Now let's take a quick look at the text just to see what this Gemara is going to be about. We'll skim through it a little bit. Our Gemara starts off with a real-life situation. This is a situation which doesn't really happen that often. It might not be that common, but there's a reason we'll discuss later why this situation was chosen. And the situation is as follows. Amar Rabba haita even munachat lo b'cheiko v'lo hikir ba v'ama v'naflo. This is the story of an unfortunate person who was sitting with a rock on his lap, and he didn't even realize he had a rock on his lap, and the person stands up, and the rock falls off, and it rolls away. Now, this is a situation, like we mentioned, which doesn't seem to happen very often. It's not very common, but we're going to see the halachot that come out of here can be very relevant to us on a daily or at least a practical basis. Okay, now looking closer at our situation, we're going to remind ourselves of something we discussed earlier in the year. And that is the difference between what was called an application and a principle. In this case, the application is the real-life, practical example of a rule. So in our Gemara, we are given the application first. Amar Rabba said, if someone has a rock on his lap without realizing it, and he stands up and falls. Now, that's what happened. What is the principle? What is the underlying idea behind this? I think what you're looking at here is this key word here, this key line right here, without realizing it. Okay, what happens? Okay, what happens when somebody damages? What's happened if someone causes an accident? What happens if someone causes a lot of things to happen without even realizing it? That is our principle. So our principle, or PLE, okay, is what happens in a case of unknowing effects. Okay. I had effects of my actions that I could not have known about, I could not have controlled, I had no idea. So again, our real life application, right here. Our principle, right here. And that's what this Gemara is going to be discussing. What happens if I do something with completely not having any knowledge? Now would actually be a good time to take a pause and just, if you wanted to go back through the beginning of the video, or just to stop and think and breathe for a second before you move on to the next part. Okay, now it's moving forward. We're going to start with some pieces of background information, just some things that you need to know in order to understand this topic properly. First, we're going to start off by looking at 5 things that a person who injures somebody else must pay for. If person X injures person Z, if I come over to you and I beat you up, right, and I damage you and I hurt you, there are 5 things that we have to figure out what their value is, and therefore I have to pay. I'm guilty to pay because I hurt you. The first one is simply nezek. Nezek just means damage. I'm paying for what I broke, what I injured from you. The second one is boshet. Boshet is embarrassment. The third is ripoy, from the word rofeh, right, which means doctor, refuah, medicine, right? These are medical bills. The fourth thing here, shevet, from the word lishbot, Shabbat, to rest, which is, we're talking about missed work, right? I was sitting around doing nothing, I couldn't work, right? What was that worth? And the last one is sa'ar, is pain. So these are the 5 things that I pay for. And within this group, we're actually going to circle the bottom 4 here. And we are going to call these bottom 4 arba'a divarim, which is loosely translated as 4 things, or the other 4 things. These 4, boshet, ripoy, shevet, and sa'ar, these 4, right, embarrassment, medical bills, time off of work, and pain, they have different laws than the first one, which is nezek, which is damages. There might be situations where I'm only paying for nezek and I'm not paying for these 4. So therefore, we're going to separate them and call it again. We have nezek on one hand, and when we have arba'a dvarim, the other 4 things. Okay, we are now going to turn our attention to 2 other areas halacha that are not necessarily related to one another, and they are not necessarily related to the halachot that we discussed earlier about damages, but they all come up in our unit. Therefore, we're going to make sure to cover them all first. The first area we're going to discuss right now is called Ir Miklat, literally defined as city of refuge or a city of safety. This is a city. There were a bunch of them set up in Eretz Yisrael. The way it works is as follows: if one person kills another one by accident, and it's decided that the person who did the killing was irresponsible, and that's why the other person died, so the relatives of the victim actually have the right to go ahead and take revenge against the murderer, even though he did it by accident. However, the murderer has the ability to escape to an Ir Miklat, to a city of refuge, and then the relatives cannot take revenge against him. So this is Ir Miklat, and our Gemara is going to be known as Galut. Okay, Galus, otherwise, right, translated as exile, because the murderer is basically, in effect, exiled to the city in order to protect himself. The next area of halacha we're going to discuss is what's called Melechet Machshevet. Melechet Machshevet is an area in Hilchot Shabbat, and it says as follows: a malacha has to be done in a regular way. In order for somebody to violate an Isur Da'oraita, to violate Shabbat, to be a Mechalel Shabbat according to the Torah, so the malacha has to be done in a normal way. So therefore, let's say I write by holding a pen in my teeth, or I do something, let's say, I turn a light switch on with my elbow, something to that effect. So that's something not doing something in the normal. It's not doing something in the normal way, and therefore I am not chayav for violating Shabbos Midoraita. Midorabanan, it's a problem, but it's not the essential violation of Shabbat. Melechet Machshevet is referring to doing the malacha in the normal way. So Melechet Machshevet is what's required in order to violate Shabbat. If you do not have Melechet Machshevet, then you do not violate Shabbat Midoraita. Finally, we have a category of halacha called Nizkei Eved. That means damaging somebody's servant. And the halacha is as follows. This is directly in the Torah. As you can see, it comes from Shemot Perek Chaf Aleph. And the halacha says as follows. The pasuk says as follows: V'chiyakeh ish et ein avdo. If somebody will damage his servant's eye, o et ein amato, okay, or his female servant, again, in this case, it's a servant, that's all that really matters, vishichta, and destroys the eye. What's the halacha? L'chavshi yishalchenu, he must send his servant free. Why? Tachat eino, because of the eye. So in this case, it's kind of a repayment, it's a penalty, whatever it is, okay? If you take out a servant's eye, or in this case, damage them in any way, shape, or form, you are then required to l'chavshi yishalchenu, to set that servant free. What we're going to see is that this is not necessarily true in every single case of damage, right? If I just, if someone would just punch their eved, perhaps, and give them a black and blue mark, does that mean they should go free? Right? What exactly is a situation where an eved goes free, a servant goes free because they are injured by their owner? And here we are introduced to the opinion of Rabban Shimon ben Gamliel. Rabban Shimon ben Gamliel Omer, Rabban Shimon ben Gamliel says, Vishichta, which is a quote from a pasuk. If we go back and look at the pasuk that we saw earlier, so the pasuk says, there we go, if someone will damage their servant's eyes, vishichta, and destroys it. So again, Rabbi Gamliel is using the word vishichta here. So what does he say the word Vishichta teaches us? Very important. Only if he had intention to destroy it. Only if the owner had intention to damage, to destroy the eye, only then does Rabban Shimon Gamaliel say that the servant goes free. But if there's no intention to damage, if there was no intention to destroy, if it was accidental, the owner is not required to send the servant free. And Rabban Gamaliel gets this from the way the pasuk phrases itself, because if you look at the pasuk, it seems to be a little bit extra, right? If somebody will damage the servant's eyes and destroys it, why not? Why can't the pasuk just say, right? If somebody will destroy the eye, right? Why feel the need to add in to do it in two parts? If they will damage the eye and destroy it, so Rabban Gamaliel is telling us is that the reason it mentions both is because the damage has to be for the sake of destroying. Either way, just to recap Rabban Shimon Gamaliel's opinion, if the injury to the servant happens by, we'll say just by accident, then he does no freedom. He does not go free. But if there was intent to harm, only then does the servant go free. Okay, now let's go over the five areas of halacha that we just discussed that are going to come up in our Gemara. The first one is nezek, which just translates as damage. The second one is the arba'a divarim. Sorry for the handwriting there. Arba'a divarim, which means the four things. In this case, it actually means the other four things. The other four things that you pay for in damage, other than the damage itself. That was embarrassment. That was time off from work, medical bills, and pain. The third area of halacha was melechet. Melechet. Melechet mach shevet, which meant doing malacha in a normal way on Shabbat. That's the only way you violate the true halacha. The true halacha, hilchot Shabbat, is by doing malacha in a normal way. The fourth one is galut. That was exile for accidental murder. Again, I apologize for the handwriting. And the last one was nizke eved. Okay, if you hurt an eved, okay, he or she go free. Now, if we take a close look at the Gemara, we'll notice that each of these topics is mentioned explicitly. So we start off right here. We have, again, our original situation right here. Okay, our original situation of the guy with the rock in his lap, and he gets up and it falls off. And the Gemara is going to ask what the halacha is in regards to a lot of different things. We have L'inyan nizakin, there's your nezik, your damage. We have L'inyan arba'a dvarim, regarding the other four things. We have L'inyan Shabbat, and we have Melechet machshevet, okay, doing malach in the normal way. We have, here we go, L'inyan galut, that's exile, that's going to the Ir Miklat. And finally, we have L'inyan eved, damaging a slave. And the key word we have here is L'inyan. L'inyan means regarding. What is the halacha in this situation, in the following situation? What is the halacha regarding all of these areas of halacha? What is the law in such a situation? Right? And we're asking regarding nezek, what's the halacha? Regarding the other four things, what's the halacha? Regarding Shabbat, what's the halacha? Is it melechet machshevet? Is it not? Regarding galut, regarding exile, does this person have to go to exile? And regarding eved, what if this person then damages, in his actions, damages an eved, right? Would the eved have to, or would the eved be allowed to go free?